Yes, right. No talking. Okay, here we go. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Northfield Township Board to order. Please stand for the invocation and the pledge.
Do you want me to do it?
Jan's
Oh, okay, good.
Dear God, you are the source of all that is good. You are the source of all our blessings. Thank you for every gift we have been given. We thank you for the opportunity to come and gather together today. We ask for your hand of blessings on this meeting. We ask that you would guide and direct our meeting so that it is full of wisdom, productivity, and respect for one another. Thank you for helping us to accomplish our work and goals today. Amen.
Amen.
Please call the roll, Clerk Manley.
Bellinger.
Here.
Dockett.
Here.
Zelenak.
Present.
Shockley.
Here.
Manley here. Otto.
Here.
Chick.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Everyone's here. We have many members of the public and a recording secretary or attorney. Okay, I would like a motion to adopt the balance. I'll make a motion to adopt the balance of the agenda. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, motion by Chalkley and second by Bellinger. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Okay, now we have an opportunity for call to the public. Would anyone like to speak at this time? Come on up. State your name and your address and
Okay,
yes.
Catherine Johnson, 7777 Sutton Road. I'm speaking on the videographic compensation agenda item since you appear to be deciding that is or has been an employee position. I want to share some background so you can understand the impact of this decision. Jim Nelson has fulfilled the township videographer role since 2004 and has served multiple boards in that capacity. He received no technical training or instruction in video systems or videography from the township. For an employee, the township should and needs further to budget and provide employee training and require management to gain technical knowledge of this position. For the past video system, Jim provided tools for repair parts, and purchased headphones to accommodate trustee Dockett after learning of his hearing difficulty. He has since purchased additional headphones to accommodate residents. These are his personal property and loaned to the township at his own expense. Northfield Township did not accommodate trustee Dockett or the residents in their hearing issues. Northfield Township did not reimburse Jim for the parts or the headphones purchased. The township should not expect an employee to fund these systems. It should purchase its own equipment and budget for maintenance and upgrades. Since both the past and current systems are subject to glitches, gaps, and cannot accommodate viewing of a PowerPoint presentation and a speaker simultaneously, Jim purchased and bought a backup camera for the meetings. When needed, he has edited the live stream to add PowerPoint presentations, completed the gaps using his own personal video, and added titles to help the speakers help the community understand the speakers. This editing was done on high-end, up-level computer equipment with high-end software at no additional charge to the township. Assuming a contractor-type relationship, it was done with the highest level of commitment to retain the original meeting content and context. You can see both the actual and the edited versions clearly labeled on live stream. The township should pay an employee for video editing time. This will be an added cost based on your decision. It should also obtain this capability, including computers, software, upgrade fees, and training for future employees. Lastly, there is no backup for Jim if he is not available. Knowing this, Jim schedules meetings, vacations, and family commitments, including a hospice visit to his mother around your schedule. He makes himself available for special meetings and with advance notice. The township will need to identify and train backup personnel for this position. As a retired General Motors executive, I am very familiar with this technology. I am dismayed to hear the township is deciding that this has been and is an employee position, as it impacts both our finances, both in structural cost and labor costs. With the pace of technology and change in this media, in my opinion, this position is ideally suited for a skilled independent contractor, which would avoid some of the added costs I have just listed above. It's your choice how you choose to fund this position. I am not in support of an employee doing this, and I want to personally thank Jim for his past service to the community. For those who ask about editing, This is a graphic, and every time you see a little line on here, this is a slide that got inserted to your recent budget presentation. You can make a judgment of how many hours or time was involved in doing this, but this was done at no cost to you for a 3-hour meeting that was only billed for $85. So you can make your judgment. You need to assume you will also pay for setup and closing time now for these employees if you go to this hourly rate proposal.
Thank you.
Mary Devlin, 9211 Brookside Drive. I see the videographer compensation on tonight's agenda also. Why now? A discussion on this after all these years. Jim started getting $85 per meeting when it was decided at the July 10th, 2012 board meeting with a motion by Mark Stanzaloso and a second by Wayne Dockett. Prior to that time, he worked for free from 2004 to 2012, which is 8 years. Also, it needs to be mentioned that in some instances, he used his own money for items, as well as doing backup with his own camera and computer when necessary. And he certainly has no personal gain by doing his job. So I will ask again, why now? It all sounds rather suspect to me. One other thing I want to mention is I also want to mention that in the memo from Janet, there's a sentence that states, quote, per salary.com, the rate for a videographer is $24 to $37 hourly. So for a 3-hour meeting, you're talking $111, which is 26 over what you're paying him right now. And many meetings, as we all know, last at least 3 hours, and some of them have been longer. And I think it's very wrong, and I think you need to think twice about doing this. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak? Okay.
Dave Gibbons at 8985 Garfield. I have 2 different things I'd like to bring up. One, I hear a lot of people talking about the taxpayers and this and that. And I would like to remind each and every one of you, you do not work for the taxpayers. I repeat that, you do not work for the taxpayers. You work for the voters and the citizens of this township. If you have lack of money, maybe you need to come up with some other ways to finance the township. Taxes are not your only way of doing it. My second point is I understand there's been some businesses wanting to come into town and they've been turned down. You guys were all elected because you wanted to grow the community and do positive things for the community. Why are these businesses being turned down? On another point, I like to address medical marijuana. I use medical marijuana myself. I have arthritis and I'm in constant pain. It helped get me off addictive opiate drugs. Our township has a big opiate problem right now. Marijuana treatment is becoming a widely accepted treatment for opiate addiction. It stops them from going to heroin, which is more deadly. You don't have people passing out in their cars. You don't have people leaving their babies in the car and passing out in the park because they're hooked on heroin. It's a good thing. You guys have the chance now to set fees and permit prices for people to grow marijuana, to sell marijuana, to do multiple different businesses. Marijuana is going to be a business that's growing in the future. If you wait for the federal government to decide that it's legal and we can do stuff, you're going to be too late because big business is already waiting. The minute that happens, big business is going to come in and sweep up everything that is not readily established. You need to get part of that done now. Also, our the money that the state collects for medical marijuana is based off the same project that Colorado uses, which goes that districts and townships that have medical marijuana legalized get some of that money back from the state, and it's based on proration. So a city of Ann Arbor that has a dozen of them is going to get a great big chunk. If we allow one, we get a little bit. If you allow a couple, we get a bit more. There is no dispensaries anywhere in this area between Ann Arbor, Lansing, and Flint. I can assure you there is a large market. I can assure you that the crime rate does not increase. It has been proven in several states that if anything, the crime rates go down. So I think you really need to look at this if you want to do things for the township and make us a better community. Marijuana could be one thing that would bring stuff in. I'm not saying it's the only thing. There's plenty of businesses out there that we could use. But this is a growing industry, and you have a chance now to make money on just fees and fees and permits, if nothing else. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, David Gordon, Helena Road. I'd like to agree with the man who just spoke. The laws against marijuana have been ridiculous for 50 years. They're not helping anybody. And I think the township should take a good close look at that, because the state voters have said it's perfectly fine in our state. The federal government's lagging far behind. But that's not what I initially came in here to talk about. There's two things: the sewers, which is on the agenda, and the item that was talked about by Kathy Johnson and Mary Devlin. I'll start with that. Mary Devlin asked the question, why is this on the agenda now? I understand that the board is involved in trying to determine who's an employee and who's an independent contractor. And some people say that's why this is on the agenda now, but I don't believe that. I believe that Jim Nelson's job is on the agenda right now because he wrote some critical articles about two trustees on our board that were posted on northfieldneighbors.org, which is a blog site. It's unfortunate that public officials would be so offended that they would take their public position and use them to make accusations against somebody simply because they disagreed with them. I'm saying this because when I look at the packet, I see that this item on the agenda regarding Jim Nelson and the videographer starts with a June 20th memo from Trustee Otto, who says, quote, "There is concern about independent contractors using township property for personal gain, and that we need to protect the township from misuse of that property." To me, that is an outrageous and an ugly charge, which is completely unfounded. There's no gain here. And it's a ridiculous charge. As other people have said, Jim Nelson worked here for 7 years for nothing. He shows up at all the meetings. He goes out of his way to do an excellent job. He reaches into his own pocket to provide equipment here. This is not his gain. This is the community's gain. He's one of the most dedicated volunteers in our community. And to accuse him of personal gain is outrageous. Then I look at the memo from Ms. Chick, Trustee Chick, who compares his salary with people that are in full-time positions. You can't compare an independent part-time contractor salary or stipend with what you pay somebody who's working 40 hours a week. You're comparing apples and oranges. If anything, Mr. Nelson deserves a raise. He's not making $28 an hour when you add in all the hours he puts in. It's more like minimum wage. You're getting a highly skilled person for minimum wage. That is a personal gain. Just because your feelings are hurt by something somebody writes, please don't let it cloud your judgment and into attacking someone and using your positions of authority against members of this community. If you can't take the heat, as President Truman said, get out of the kitchen. If your skin is so thin that you can't take the criticism, then resign, because you're not cut out for public service. It's okay for members of this public to come up here and say anything they want. They get their 3 minutes and they're gone. And they can write anything they want on their blog sites, because this is America and this is liberty, and people should be allowed to do that without their public officials coming after them.
20 seconds, Mr. Gordon.
So that's all I had to say. In terms of the sewers, I see that you're looking at $2.7 million just for maintenance to replace the existing sewer lines. I'm very interested to see how the board is prudent and conservative with our precious tax dollars, because we've got a 67-year-old system that needs serious money invested in it just to keep it operating before we start adding or expanding it whatsoever. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
Jody Carberry, 9132 Lincoln Drive. I would like to say that I agree with both of the gentlemen before me. I think that you should look into allowing medical marijuana dispensaries in Whitmore Lake. Like he said, there are no dispensaries anywhere near us, and a lot of people who use medical marijuana as just use it, a lot of them have hard times getting around. They are potentially in wheelchairs, or maybe they don't have a license because they can't afford the car to drive them places if they're handicapped. It's just hard for a lot of people who don't. It's just hard. It's hard when you're handicapped, as you can tell, because I also agree with the fact that the township should probably provide the hearing headphones for people with disabilities. I don't know the law about the ADA and what that covers, but you have an elevator for people who are in wheelchairs. It just makes sense that people who can't hear should be provided with whatever helps them. I don't know about the rest of it. I wasn't here in previous meetings, but my grandma's handicapped, and I would do anything for her to make sure that she has the best abilities to live her life. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Oh, here. Oh, come on up.
Hi, my name is Stephen Reese. I also reside at 9132 Lincoln Drive. I agree with the past three people who have spoken. Medical marijuana is a very huge, profitable industry right now, and for states that have it legal, they have the potential to make a lot of money. You're also talking about a substance that has absolutely no deaths related to it at all. No overdoses, you can't die from the withdrawals, yet, you know, we tax and sell alcohol, which is very addictive, and you can die from the withdrawals. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Meredith Counts, and I live at 8840 Main Street, and I have a couple quick points. One, I wanted to say that I'm in favor of and excited to see what will happen with the professional leadership of a township supervisor, so I wanted to thank you guys for ironing out the details. From the earlier meeting, it's clear that there are details to be ironed out, but I wanted to thank you for that. I also appreciate ongoing discussion about tidying up town and main streets. I think that's great. And I had one question earlier. Trustee Bellinger, you've mentioned how Washtenaw County taxes are so high per median compared to other counties. And I wonder if that applies to Northfield Township in particular, or if that's like other parts of Washtenaw County when it massed out together. So I'm interested in that statistic, but I wanted to know more about our township. Okay. You know, not encased in the rest.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Maybe you could talk later and get filled in with Trustee Bellinger. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, board member, oh, come on up.
Something real short. Mary Devlin, 9211 Brookside Drive. Regarding the highest taxes in Washtenaw County, maybe you should stop and think about the fact that the University of Michigan has a ton of property and they pay no taxes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, board member clarifications. Were there any items that anybody wanted to address? Mr. Dockett.
Yes, hope you can hear me. The township videographer is paid $85 a meeting. He records every word spoken during the meeting. Before he was working for the township, the equipment did not work most of the time. They say he is a township employee. I don't go along with that. The stenographer is paid $195 per meeting, more than twice as much. And she gets $125 more after 3 hours. That is $320 per meeting. More than 3 times more than what Jim gets. And she records almost nothing in her minutes, just the important stuff, I'm told. Each of them are talented technicians. Each of them do an important job for the township. And the township trustee, as a township trustee, I would not want to try to replace either one of these talented people. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments? Go ahead, Ms. Zelnok.
I just
Okay.
wanted to address the one, Mary, we can maybe get together and go over some of the numbers and whatnot, and or maybe even, yeah,
Okay.
probably figure something out with that. And thank you so much for coming out. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Ms. Zelnok, go ahead.
Yes, first I would like to thank Mr. Nelson for all his years of service, paid and unpaid. He does an outstanding job, and I do agree with Mr. Dockett. We are very fortunate to have someone very talented to ensure the meetings are broadcast to the public. That's one of the most important jobs, is to show the public what we're talking about, and he's done an outstanding job. I know we're going to discuss it more, but I did want the public to know that I think Jim is, or Mr. Nelson is a great asset to our township. As far as, let's see here, I know Ms. Bellinger in the prior meeting mentioned about providing the report for, pardon me, for donations. So I will ask Yvette to do that. So we'll do it monthly at the financial report when we pass that out, so that we can, basically we will show the accounts and what dollars have been donated. So we will take care of that. I think that might be it for now. Thank you.
Okay. And I want to place a little bit of background on this whole independent contractor employee issue, just so that you all know. When we hired on a code enforcement officer as an independent contractor, and I attended an MTA, Michigan Township Association training, and it was about employees and labor relations. And in the handbook that they gave us, there was a section on using independent contractors. And so when I read this, it occurred to me that our code enforcement officer was not an independent contractor, he was an employee. So we made the switch with our code enforcement officer to become an employee. And at that time then we were looking at independent contracts, you know, for dealing with the rest of our independent contractors, and we found that we actually don't have signed contracts with many of our people that work with us. So then we started looking at what was an appropriate contract, you know, a form contract. So I can pass out this to anybody if they would like to read it. It's from the MTA, and it talks about independent contractors and what the ramifications are of having someone hired on as an independent contractor when they're really an employee. There are fines associated with that if you're audited and they find that you are miscalculated misclassifying your employees that way. So anybody is welcome to read this if they'd like. But that's where it started, was with our code enforcement officer. And then the question became, well, what is the situation with our other independent contractors? And that's where the question came up with our attorney. So it wasn't any attempt on my part to do anything except get us up to snuff as far as that goes. A lot of things had been kind of just the way they are for decades, and so we're just trying to clean things up and make it more professional and make it more legal, and that was the intent of this. So, you know, anybody can talk to me about that afterward, but that was why it came up, and it wasn't because I think that Jim Nelson isn't an awesome employee. He's here all the time. He's on time. He does a great job for us. He never misses a day, and I'm really pleased that he does spend his time working for us at the township. And so that's where that came from. And we're going to talk about it a bit later, but I just wanted to give you some background on that. Okay, next, Ms. Otto.
So thank you very much for that clarification, and just to let everybody know that this came up during one of our personnel committee meetings. So I do want to go back to what Mr. Gordon said. I've been on the board for 5.5 years, and I know during the 5.5 years I have had public comment and people saying things against me and negative comments and everything. I have big shoulders. I can carry it. And while the comments, I don't read the Northfield Neighbor News. I choose not to. You choose to print it. I choose not to read it. So the whole point of this is that this is not a targeting. This is just to clean up. Yes, I made the comment, and I stand by what I said. But I also feel that where we're at for the township, it warrants, not keeping the township at risk. So going back also to Meredith, your comments. Downstairs is a sign. It was made up back in, I think, It's gone?
It was old and outdated.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to use that as an example, but because we're a general law township, we can't charge the taxpayers more than 1.2 or 1.8?
1.1 or something.
1.1. We can't go past that, and I think right now Northfield Township only charges about $800,000.
0.79.
Okay, $800,000.
We bring in $265,000 from taxes.
Right.
A year, that's
So
really little.
we really can't go beyond 1.1 million because that is our statute as a township. So whatever taxes that do get paid out really comes out of the county, school, that's where the money comes from. And it's more on a county level than it is Northfield Township.
May I add one more? Oh,
Yeah, go
but
ahead.
you sure? Thank you, Ms. Otto, because we are putting together a chart, again, of all the taxes, because there have been a lot of new taxes that the people have voted from a Washtenaw County as a whole perspective that have changed the taxes. So we are putting that together. So what we're putting is when they expire, when they were voted, are they kind of like our township millage is considered like an indefinite tax? Some of the county millage is considered Washtenaw County, but the sinking fund, doing it by the school district, so we are putting that together, and that should be certainly on our website soon, but we are working on that to identify the millage rates, when they were voted, when they expire. Thank you. Thanks for bringing that up. I knew there was something else, and I couldn't find it in my notes. Thank you.
Ms. Manley.
I'll be quick.
Yeah.
I did have questions about the videographer, and the people in the audience answered those. My questions were going to be if Jim uses any of his own equipment and how long he's been here. So thank you for answering those questions in case you're not here later when we discuss it. Okay.
Okay.
I would like to say, and we charge every penny we can. We give you guys no breaks. Every penny that's legal, we get you for. Thank you.
Okay. Next item, correspondence and announcements. Do we have any of that? Okay. Do you mind if I try to turn that on while you're talking?
No, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
And I'm going to make this short because it was rather long, but we're running long and we have a presentation. Sorry, Mr. Rubel. But there was some residents that we had conversation with this morning. Actually, it was 22 of them. And most of them were related to the issues of blight and the lack of business in the downtown area. And what the meat of it was is that a lot of the residents feel that the people in control aren't doing anything to fix it. But they did ask me to at least read some of these so that they want to be heard. The conversation centered on blight issues, particularly around the downtown area. As a consequence, the discussion morphed into comments about the lack of businesses in downtown, why we can't attract business, why blight issues appear not to be addressed, and what residents would like to see, and a huge expression of disappointment perceived that those in control are doing nothing to fix the problem. There were poignant comments that I felt expressed the sentiment of the community on the issues of blight and the lack of continued loss of business and vitality in Whitmore Lake and Northfield. A couple of issues were mentioned more than once. The bicycle shop property is overgrown. There is a pile of cement on Main Street that's left unattended. Snowmobiles and trailers visible on Main Street. Some businesses and homes not kept up along with decaying signage. And these are the people that wanted to be heard. From Judy Valentine, I was born and raised in Whitmore Lake, left for years. Now I'm back, and honestly, it was a better town 45 years ago. At least we had a bank, a hardware store, a dime store, and several other things the town needs that we don't have anymore. And I don't feel coming to a meeting would do anything. Too many people, other people think that they are in control and won't let the town grow. From Brian Bauer, I agree with most of the comments already posted. While we haven't been here long, 3 years this fall, it's depressing to look at the state of things on Main Street. It is sad to me that Harbor Cove Apartments has one of the better looking properties between 8 Mile and East Shore. My parents have even commented on how sad the town looks when they come to visit. If the people in charge have not noticed the sad state of Main Street, unkempt facades and piles of cement in the middle of town, they are driving through with blinders on. The first step to growth and attracting people is to clean things up. From Georgine Cleary Dignan, talking about the shopping complex at Winterly Road is struggling. It was, at one point, they were looking at property here in Whitmore Lake. The problem for business here is the residents don't spend their money here. They go elsewhere. And to spend their money, I feel we are just suffering from stagnation, decline for way too long, and the same people fight every attempt for growth. Also from Ms. Dignant, as far as notifying the township, do officials not live in town? Do you not drive down Main Street? There is blight all over town. All it takes is a couple of days of driving to note the neglected, dangerous, and blightful properties. And the township officials that say they care, then why are they still fighting for growth but turning a blind eye to this serious problem? Who in their right mind would want to move uptown? From Kim Tallman, and it's sad. So frankly, if I don't have access to the lake where I live now, I would move out of the community. There's just too much, not much to offer on here, and what's left is going downhill. We did address, and Marlene actually spoke to some of the issues about contacting our ordinance officer. If you see something, say something. It's complaint driven, so if you let him know, he will address it. We have a very good ordinance officer that will take care of it. Unfortunately, some of the blight issues don't get settled right away. It's a process. It can take months. Am I correct? Yeah. And what he's been doing, there's been some compliance, but sometimes it's a battle. So it's not that the board or the township isn't doing anything. We're trying to do something. We've given the blight ordinance officer more time, more to do his work, and hopefully, and he's been very good about it, very proactive, so hopefully we'll see things change. but I think we do have to stay on top of it and really, really appreciate. There was 22 people in this conversation that were basically saying the same thing. So there is an issue out there that we do, do need to address, and we're working on it. I just want to let people know we're working on it, but the residents have to participate in it too. So that's it. Thank you.
Ms. Otto?
I received a correspondence from Dave Richards. He's the committee chair for Pact 409 Cub Scouts. I'm not going to read everything, but the basic correspondence is that they would like to use 75 Barker for their PAC meetings. I'd like to have it on the agenda next time for the next board meeting for a discussion. I have given them options to go to the community center. They have looked at the community center. I would like the board to have a discussion on that.
Okay.
So I'll give you the correspondence. I was hoping that they would have sent a letter to everyone. I found it in my packet. It was dated 7/10. So it did not get on this agenda. I just want to make sure that it's on the next meeting's agenda.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Zelnok?
I think it might be good to have our ordinance officers come to a meeting, introduce themselves, and explain the process real briefly. Because as you mentioned, I mean, we are aware of some of the sites mentioned, but it doesn't get cleared up on the first visit. And I think it would be helpful to share the process with the community of how it works. And again, as Ms. Chick said, say something if you see it. I mean, I've noticed them as well, and I talked to Mike as well. So I just think it would be helpful to have him introduced to the community and share the process.
Sounds good.
Ms. Chuckley did put something online, a forum that they can go to. It's on the Facebook site at Northfield Area News. You can click on that and it'll take you to a form
on our website.
you can fill out. Yes.
Right, and all of you who got the newsletter in your taxes, on the front page, there's a little thing from about Mike, and so feel free to go there. Okay, is that good right now? I'd like to let Mr. Brian Rubel get started here on this presentation. So here you go. I'll see if I can.
Well, good evening. So I'll sit here and we'll look at the screen. Is that? Sounds like Ms. Shockley will advance the screen, or? Okay, great. So thank you. Back in March, you asked me to take a look at your your sanitary sewers and the capacity of the sanitary sewers, and in particular, you asked me to install some flow meters. We started a study in 2016, where we did some theoretical paper type calculations of sewer capacity and flow rates, and that can be rather uncertain. Each individual system responds differently to rainfall, and so the measurements are very important to fine tune that calculation. So in March, you asked me to do that, and going back to 2016, we inferred that 3 trunk sewers in the township were either at or very close to their capacity, and we called that the main interceptor. We'll look at these on a map in a little bit. The East Shore trunk sewer and the Main Street trunk sewer. And in particular, we were looking at these because of demands that might occur in zoned areas, mixed development areas, including the 7 Mile Special Assessment District, the Wildwood Farm area, the Kelly Farm area. The other growth area, I'll just mention, this is the last time I think I'll mention it tonight, is the North Territorial area. That's pumped around the sewers. It has a pump station that bypasses the sewers, so it really doesn't affect the sewer capacity growth in the North Territorial. So I won't talk about that again, but that is a growth area, and that's why I won't talk about it. So we installed the flow meters in early April of this year, and we left them in place and serviced them several times a month for 3 months in total. We removed them a little over 2 weeks ago, upon which we could complete this report. And the goal was, again, confirm the paper calculations we did a little over a year ago, see how the actual measurements changed. So a couple introduction to the flow monitoring, anybody that maintains a yard this spring probably came to the same conclusion. It was a pretty dry spring. My grass turned yellow and brown in May, I think. So we didn't get a lot of rainfall, and that's really what we were hoping for. We have some, but we didn't get as much as we really had hoped. And what we confirmed, is just kind of a preview, is actually the projections we made in 2016 were pretty close. We revised them a little bit as a result of this measuring, but that's good to know too, that we were on the right track a year ago. So we were on the right track. We refined a little bit more here this spring, and I'll go through some specifics on that. And yeah, Marlene, I think the next one. So this is just a preview of what this data looks like. This is just a chart. We have these charts every day of 3 months at 3 different metering locations. And if you're familiar with charts, there's axes on these charts. The bottom is time. So time goes from the left to the right. And on the vertical axis is flow rate. So as time goes, you see the flow changing. And during dry weather at the left, you see a very common pattern those first couple of days. Flows very low at night. As people wake up during the day, flows in the sewers increase. They stay high throughout the day, and in the evening then they taper down as people retire for the evening. The blue line represents a rainfall event that we observed. So as you see the blue, that's rain occurring, and you see the flows go up with the rain. And in fact, they stay up for several days after the rain. They slowly taper back to the normal level. Mr. Willis sees that every day at the plant, or every time it rains. So he gets a similar pattern there. So this is very common with older systems. You have an older system. They just are not watertight. They are not rain tight. People have perhaps connected downspouts to the sewer or sump pumps. We see that quite a bit. Your sewer is largely a clay material, very brittle clay, so there are breaks in the sewer here and there, and rainwater comes down through the ground and gets into the pipe too. So very common. It's not unusual what we're seeing in your sewers or what we see in all older systems. So what we do is we take that data and we try to make some projections about what happens during even larger rains. And this is another chart. In this case, I have flow rate still is on the vertical axis, and on the horizontal axis is rainfall. So I plot the points of rainfall versus flow, and I fit a line to it. And the key here is I'm trying to project out what occurs at a storm, and it probably seems arbitrary, 3.9 inches. The state of Michigan has dictated that that's the size of a storm they would like to see a sanitary sewer system accommodate. Statistically, it occurs about once every 25 years. That's how we arrive at the 3.9 inches. So I make that projection, and we project up to this point way over here on the right side. That's what we're trying to determine. We do that for all 3 meters. In this case, this was the downstream-most meter near the 8-mile pump station. That projected to be about 3.3 million gallons per day is the measurement of flow. So we do that at all 3 of the meters, and Marlene, you could advance it. So this is the second meter we had at the Barker Road area, Barker and US 23 area, and that projection is 1.9 million gallons per day. And we do it again on the meter we had at East Shore, and that projection is 1.1 million gallons per day. Again, I would really love to see, you can kind of see it, all the rain is clustered away over on the left side at kind of a low amounts. The more I have out toward 3.9 inches, the better the projection is. So we have good data. We don't have great data to work. The spring just didn't cooperate. It cooperated some, not perfectly. So I prepared this table just to compare the changes from 2016 to 2017, the projections at these 3 points. I think in each case it's slightly higher after the flow metering. I think it's very similar. In my book, it's pretty similar. It hasn't changed a lot. We came pretty close in 2016, but we learned. It was good data. We have a much better projection now in 2017. And in fact, the flows went up, which means that we are actually using even more of the sewer capacity than we thought we were.
Are you on page 9?
I don't know what page it is.
It should be page 10.
I've got a summary here that's different
My
page numbers.
My page 10 don't look like that.
Same here.
So, yeah, Marlene, the next slide. So then we get these peak flows and we compare them to the capacity in the pipes, and we can calculate that knowing the diameter of the pipe and the slope of the pipe in particular. And so we come up with a column at various points in the system, the capacity of the pipe, and then the design flow in the pipe. And as you can see, 4 of the 5 rows on this table, we are either at the capacity of the pipe or maybe even a little bit above the capacity of the pipe. The 5th area, East Shore, which is kind of the east end of East Shore, the flow is well below the capacity of the pipe. So that means there's extra capacity there. So we have very little, we do not have very much extra capacity in your sewer system. And that's fundamentally the same conclusion we came to in 2016. So, you know, what we came to in 2016 are what are the improvements needed, and these would be to accommodate new growth. We have these areas that have been planned for growth, so these aren't improvements to necessarily accommodate existing flow. It's more of what needs to occur in conjunction with growth. And we'll have a map that shows these in a second. The interceptor are labeled A and B on the map. You would enlarge the sewer. That's normally the capacity improvement. And that would have nominally a cost of just shy of $2 million to replace that sewer. Now, when Ms. Chalkley and Mr. Willis and I reviewed this draft report, Mr. Willis had a suggestion that maybe instead of improving that sewer, you could build a new pump station and a bypass around this. And that is something that should be explored. We looked at the cost of doing that, and it was really close to $1.9 million. So, you know, it may end up being a pump station. The point I'm trying to make is I still think it's about a $2 million project either way. And then, yeah, and here we go. So the reach in particular I was referring to are segments A and B, and that's essentially from the 8-mile pump station down to the US 23 area, just across US 23, I believe. Oh, I'm in the way? So this is the first segment. This is the $2 million segment, A and B. The next segment, yep, here we go. She blew it up. The next segment is east of there, along East Shore, and this was just shy of $1 million, the same capacity improvement there. 920,000 is in the report. So Main Street we looked at, the trunk sewer on Main Street. That looks like it's in pretty good capacity-wise. There's one development in that direction, the Kelly Farm, that would use that, and that looked adequate if that Kelly Farm were to proceed to accommodate that flow. So these are expensive improvements. One of the conclusions is part or all of it would be funded perhaps with connection fees associated with the new development. So the time might be right to look at your connection fee, and I'm getting phone calls at my office. I know the township is about development, so there is some activity, some interest in doing that. So it's important to get that connection fee established prior to these applicants, if you wish to pass this cost on to the new developers. You are going to, you should get the grant this fall that will fund you to do many activities in your sewer system. It may be worthwhile to go back because it was a dry spring to update some of these flow measurement points. I think that would be worth doing. Closer we can, bigger storms, the more accurate we can come with these projections. And the grant also allows you to develop a computer model to help with these projections. Instead of just my charts, you'll have a very sophisticated computer model that you can use to help with these too. So that may sharpen that estimate a little bit. So that's my summary of what we've been up to the last 3 months, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to go through that and would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Mr. Dockett.
What kind of growth have we had since you did it last year or the year before? I mean, you're talking about growth, but I don't see any growth we've had. Do you know?
I do not know of any growth.
Okay. And why are you talking about this property here, or right next, on the other side of this street right here is the Kelly property?
Well, it's one of the 4 areas that it is zoned for development.
Yeah,
So
well, but
that's
it was like it is right now. It was like that when I was a very, very small child. So I don't see us doing anything over it unless you know something about the Kelly property.
I'm not a planner, sir. I'm an engineer. I'm giving you engineering advice.
Well, I mean, I'm just wondering why you're using these when we don't have any growth.
Okay. Ms. Otto?
I did notice on page 10, your table 4.1, that even with the March 2016 to July 2017, both when we had average dry weather, there was an increase in the usage. And then also when we did have storm period, there was also an increase. And then the peaking factor, it just seems like every year there is a trend that it continues to increase. So really what we've just validated, even in the dry periods, it's still increasing. It isn't, it's not overwhelming, but it is still increasing. The pumps are being used more and more.
I think it's more a matter of we have better data than we did in 2016. I don't want to imply that the system has deteriorated significantly in a year at all. I do not want to leave you with that impression. We had theoretical data in 2016 based on a textbook value. Okay. In 2017, I could actually go measure it. So, no, I do not believe that the system deteriorated in a year significantly. It will never heal itself. It will never get better next year than it was this year. But I don't think it materially changed. We just have better data.
We have been getting a few trickle in, connections, I think, around the township, but I don't know how much of it is in that area that's so critical where we really potentially have no capacity. So, I could see it going up some.
A percent or so, a small amount. Yeah. Okay.
Well, we could ask our man here how many. I don't think we've had 5 or 6 or 7 this year.
Okay.
Have we?
So the concern is that we surpass the 25-year 3.9, I know up in the Thumb they got 9 inches of rain in an hour, okay?
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But, and I suppose it's not unheard of that it couldn't happen around here. I mean, we have had some huge rains. But what's the liability for the township if we don't anticipate something that has been required of us and do what we need to do, something that has been required of us by the state? And basements flood and who knows what, but...
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Maines could help answer that question too, but yes, I get called on those questions all the time as an engineer, and certainly there is an obligation to provide adequate sewer capacity so it does not back into basements. Absolutely.
Okay. So these calculations here are for current number of users. How do you calculate the effect of adding another 100 or 200 or 500 to any particular line? Would you be able to make that extrapolation on the graphs that you have?
Oh yeah, I could do it in reverse. I did it where I subtracted out and showed how many more you could connect. I could do it in reverse and show what the flow rates would change to. And in fact, I did do that because I needed to do that to come up with the sizing for the new sewers. Okay. So I do have that data in my notes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So we have this commitment to Green Oak Township potentially for 800 taps.
Yes.
They would come in where?
They would come directly, as I understand the plan, it would be they would come in almost directly to the wastewater plant.
Okay, so they would not go through any of these pipes that we're concerned with the flows right now?
The only one you have actually two commitments to Green Oak. You have the larger one, the 800 plus, which I think would come almost directly to the plant. Then you have the second commitment to fill in approximately 100 more connections on the north edge of the lake, which would come through this system.
Where we don't have any capacity, really.
That would worry me.
Right. And that would, the North Village, for instance, we had anticipated, or the synthesis plan called for about 150 units of maybe loft condos or something in there. If something like that were to be built out on our North Village site, we wouldn't have any capacity. In those lines, we would have to have the developer help prepare something.
That's my conclusion as well.
Okay, but that's just the capacity in the pipe. Equalization is another issue.
Yes, that wasn't
Okay.
part of this
That's
analysis,
okay.
but you've heard that from me many times.
Okay,
So.
okay. Thank you. Ms. Bellinger.
Just talking about the Green Oak responsibility there, what line or segment did you mention or is addressed in here that would need to be improved in order to handle 100 more, or how many more units we have guaranteed to Green Oak on the north of the lake? Through that one on the north side of the
Yeah,
lake.
it would be segments A and B for sure. And
Would there need to be improvements to handle those?
yes, you're at capacity now. So another 100 would be a concern.
So that would, and they would go either way, either south around the lake from the east side or south from the west side, either of those two routes you're saying? So both those routes would need to be addressed.
If it comes that diagonal sewer that I labeled A on the drawing, it's going to be a concern.
Ms. Otto?
How about Donna Lane? How would that be impacted?
Yeah. All A, B, C, and D, all those segments
Okay.
are needed for Donna Lane, yes.
And those are already awarded to the developer, or they've already paid for it?
I think so. That's my
We're
interpretation.
obligated. Okay. How many taps?
62.
62, okay.
Well, 62 is from the site plan.
Okay.
Right.
They have paid for 62. We should not sell them unless they're building. I don't think that would be very stupid.
Yep.
They have paid for their connection. They haven't, but the site plan associated with Donna Lane has 62 sites
Well,
in it.
they have to put in their own sewer there, don't they? And then dedicate it to the township?
They would have to pay the tap-in fees, which right now are extremely low. Right.
Unless they're building, you mean we're gonna sell taps when they're not building?
No.
No.
Well, I mean, you can't, I don't think that would be a very good thing.
Okay. But Ms. Zelnok?
So, going through this, do we have sufficient capacity for the people that are presently on the sewers?
The calculations show that you're actually a little bit above the pipe capacity, but there's some uncertainty in my projections, maybe 10 or 15%. So you're within that accuracy. There have been no reported basement backups that I'm aware of, so I have to conclude that currently you're in pretty good shape.
Okay. And then the next is, do we have any maintenance plan to take care of the current people on the sewer? Are there any needs that need to be addressed for the people that are currently there?
I have not been asked to study your maintenance. Mr. Willis may be better
I don't know,
slated
can
to
you,
answer.
do you have any thoughts on that, Mr. Willis?
Currently, we're trying to go through like a 5-year plan to televise every sewer in the township. We've done, in the past 3 years, we've probably done 60% of the pipes. We're cutting roots out. We're addressing any problems we find that we can fix. We're addressing them when we come across them. Last year, we repaired, I want to say 11 different sections of pipe that were cracked or leaking or had to be repaired. And we're ongoing with that every year now.
Okay. So we're addressing issues as they, I mean, you're kind of seeking them, but you're addressing that, and we have enough in the funds to handle that. I mean, do you have a projection that, you know, over the next couple of years or 5 years you will be addressing, and how much that would cost?
Well, right now it's part of the budget that we're using is doing that. If we've come across something that's going to need some kind of pipe work or something where we're going to have to replace pipe, we haven't come across that yet.
Okay.
So
Okay,
we're
so you
just
don't.
dealing with the maintenance issues right now.
Okay. So you're dealing with the maintenance issues, and so we're not sure, or we don't think we're going to have any major, you know, have to do anything with the piping for the current residents.
The pipe itself's in pretty good shape.
Okay, all right, so, okay. And then, so if we had to make any of these improvements, what's the time frame? Is it a 1-year project, a 2-year project, a 3-year project, a 4-year project?
If you did all 4 segments, you might want to do that over 3 years, design and construction.
So if we took one segment and we had a need to improve it, would it take us a year to enhance it? Would it take us 6 months to enhance the segment? Would it take us 2 years?
I think you'd spend 12 to 18 months to get it built, designed and built.
Okay. And you mentioned you didn't talk about the basin at all.
I did not.
So is this a potential either-or option, or is it a both option? Is it?
No, this is completely independent of the basin discussion, so.
So could we do this option without the basin, or could we do the basin without these options?
The basin would help you with the current flows right now. It would help manage the flows at the plant. The basin is almost a necessity if you add additional connections.
And that's if we add additional ones.
That's
and then,
correct.
as it always comes down to it, it's who pays for the addition?
That is a question that has to be worked through.
Because our current residents are adequately being taken care of.
By the existing sewers. Now, there's some value with the basin.
Thank you.
And the $3 million cost.
Okay, any more questions on here? Ms.
How long does a normal pipe last? I mean, we're at, what, 60, 70?
Yeah, many of yours have been there for over 40 years. A rule of thumb is 50 to 100 years. And as Mr. Willis said, I think your pipes are in pretty good shape. They maybe some joints will need to be repaired and some perhaps lining from time to time, but all indications are you've got decades ahead of you. So,
What's been our largest rainfall that you know of?
what's the largest rainfall?
Yeah.
Oh goodness!
That you've tested.
In the spring?
Right.
Just over an inch. You got over an inch a couple of times. In fact, I think it's in here somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is. You got 1.53 inches on April 20th and 1.52 on May 21st.
Ms. Chick?
So we've had really bad years when we've had spring thaws. Have we done any studies during that period to find out what the strain on the drains are?
I think perhaps some of the sizing of the equalization tank, I had a little bit of data that I used for that, but I did not have data in the sewer system at that time.
Yeah.
Okay, Ms. Otto,
No, I
did
was
you-
gonna address
the
the
same
same
thing?
thing.
Yeah.
Right, right. So,
Because it's the thaws also that create the most problem for us.
Well, Mr. Willis
the
might
spring.
know what happens
Yeah.
during that period.
Mhm.
Could you address that, Mr. Willis?
Yeah, when we get a spring thaw and Horseshoe Lake floods,
Yes.
the
Mhm.
whole sewer system under Horseshoe Lake is underwater. The one pump station along Main Street that services that, collects everything in there, will run 24 hours a day till the water goes down. It's a problem at the plant at that point. Fortunately, we don't have any basements down around Horseshoe Lake because they would be flooded. We get water high enough to go over toilets and stuff down there, so that's not an issue that's anything that's involved with the sewer itself. That's more a drainage problem with the lake, so nothing we can do that will address that.
Does it impact the wastewater treatment plant?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and what happens at the point where it can't handle that capacity?
Well, the good thing is the pump station can only pump so much, and so we only get what it can pump. If it could pump more, we would get more, and that would cause more problems. But we have to bypass some processes to get it through the plant, but we still maintain all our restrictions and everything when we do get it.
Can you explain, we've heard this before, what does it mean when you say you bypass processes? What is not happening that should be happening?
We have 2 aeration tanks, and we have a third one that sits idle. During high flows, we bypass some of the flow to that third aeration tank, and it does not get aeration, it's not treated through the aeration system. So maybe like a third of the plant goes through the process but isn't treated at the aeration level. The primary tanks, everything goes through there okay, but because of the high flows, it kind of short circuits and they don't do as good a job. So it's an issue for us, and it's difficult to treat when we get that. We do manage to pretty much get it through.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and that's with our current users, so, okay. Well, we've got this part of it done. Thank you for that.
You're quite welcome.
And we can move on, I think, to the next item on the agenda, which is also yours. So Tetra Tech is given us a proposal for a smart rate study, and I would like to make a motion to engage Tetra Tech to undertake a cost of service smart rate study for a lump sum of $10,500 and to authorize the supervisor to sign the contract. So I have a motion on the table. Do I have a second for that?
I'll support.
Okay, motion by Chalkley and support by Chick. Now we can discuss this. Ms. Bellinger.
I see in here there was apparently a rate study 3 years ago, 2014.
That's correct.
That information would be good to have, a copy of that with us, if it, to evaluate and so forth. That may be sufficient, maybe to get us started with this, educate us a little bit into. Did that rate study also have a 5-year projected rate connection fees, 5 years in advance, as you mentioned here in number 3?
It did.
So that would be good for us to probably get a copy of this 2014 study that's already been completed, because we're within the 5-year projection rate.
Okay. Do you have any other questions on this, Ms. Otto?
So because we did have that study several years ago, what are we expecting to see the difference in this study as we did that study?
I think the reason this is on your agenda for this evening is directly resulting from our previous discussion. We have some capital costs that are potential out there, largely associated with new connections.
Mm-hmm.
So the question was, if a connection fee were to be adjusted to capture a portion of these costs, what would that connection fee, what should it be? And that analysis would need to be reworked with now this new information. So I think that is why we're here 3.5 years into a 5-year study, is if you want to take a look at how the connection fee might change, we've got to redo that analysis that was done 3+ years ago. And if you're going to do that, it wasn't that much more work to take a look at the rates at the same time. It uses a lot of the same data in each calculation. So, so we will look at the connection fee again and the rates again.
And we have the SAW grant that is part of this, right?
My opinion is if you are successful in that grant this fall, and I believe you are in the next wave to be funded, that this can be applied to that grant amount. That's my opinion of the rules.
Ms. Zelnok.
So again, what are we going to get different out of this study than we did out of the April 2014 study?
It will look very similar, but it will use current data. It will use your current budget, whereas 3 years ago, it used projected budgets. So your costs may have changed. It may have gone up. It may have gone down. Your revenues may have gone up or down. So it will update all of those calculations. And I think the biggest difference is this study is it would look at a whole series of alternatives for connection fees. It will include what if none of these projects that we talked about tonight are included. It will look at what if some are. It will look at a whole spectrum of combinations.
Will it add who pays?
It will, but that will also be largely a decision that has to come from the board. But yes, it will look at that.
I'm sorry, what was the question? I didn't hear you, Lenore.
I asked it, will it have who pays for it?
Oh, who pays? Okay, thanks.
When are you looking to start this, if we do approve it?
I could start at any time. We could start at August 1st, you know, or I don't know if there was a reason to wait, we'd wait, but we could start at any time.
Okay. Mr. Dockett.
I don't like giving out a $10,500 bid, no bid contract, just handing the guy $10,500. And it says, we request the township staff to provide us with the following data. In some cases, we will request that the township staff reviews tables and data that we prepared previously for this update. Now, there's 20 items here that the township has to provide, and there's about 3 things that they're gonna do after the township provides all this information. They got 3 or 4 items here they're gonna do. Then, task does not include in this proposal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more things that we're gonna have to pay extra for. Brian Rubel is an expert invoice writer. That's what he is, and that's what he does. I would not vote for this. Thank you.
Ms. Bellinger.
You mentioned this grant. Can you please tell me who subsidizes this grant that you mentioned, the SAW grant? Where does this money come from? Do you know?
Well, the grant the township applied for in 2013, 660 communities across Michigan applied for that grant. It's being given out in waves. Every year, 90 to 100 communities are awarded based on the application made 4 years ago. It is a state grant. The state of Michigan has that money. They raised it through a bond issue in the year 2000, 2001, and hasn't been used, and so they're giving it back to local government in this form.
So this is not tax money then from, acquired from the state? This isn't state taxes? As far as you know?
I do not know how the state raised the money. I can't answer that.
Oh, thanks.
They don't manufacture money, it comes from taxes.
Ms. Manley, and then I would like to speak, and we'll call the
How
question.
old is the treatment plant?
The original plant was built in, I think, 65. We've had 3 or 4 upgrades over the years. 78 was a big one. We did another big upgrade in 98. I think the last one was in 2000.
So our oldest lines then from 1965?
Yes.
Okay. So they're not 60
No,
years.
when they first put the sewer in, the state put the sewer in. It was owned by Maxie, the boys' school. They tried to give it to Green Oak. They didn't take it. They tried to give it to Hamburg. They didn't take it. They gave it to Northfield Township. And it only
bought
went
it for
from that
$1.
plant to the school.
Got it for $1.
It went from the plant to the school on Main Street. That was it. And everything else came after that, years after.
Okay. And it does protect our water, which is why we have this sewer system around the lakes. And it's common to put septic sewer systems around lakes just to protect the water.
That's correct.
Many of us ran on having to see the master plan done. And the master plan does call for development along the US 23 corridor. It calls for a certain density of development along the US 23 corridor. We cannot provide sewer capacity if we don't do something with the system. And we are having people coming looking. I had 100 to 150 unit apartment complex looking at Whitmore Lake Road. I've had the Donna Lane has come in. The Kelly property has inquired. So we are having interest, and we want the North Village, something to happen on the North Village. We can't offer developers anything if we're not going to consider improving our sewer capacity with the lines and with the equalization basin. The point of this study is for us to be able to come up with some scenarios where we take care of the costs of this, of improving the system by charging the new users, potentially the new users for the equalization basin, and that would be recouped from the connection fees. Our connection fees are extremely low. They're $35.50, extremely low. Green Oak charges much more than that. If we have the Green Oak 800 come in to our sewer system and connect at $35.50, we are hurting. We are really hurting because we can't provide that, and we're going to have to build the equalization basin with no additional funding. So we really need to think about this carefully. What's an appropriate fee? And this rate study is going to give us an idea of what we need to do to be able to provide the sewer capacity for the newer units that are inquiring about it within the township. So I want us to think very carefully about that, but I also want us to pass this sewer rate study so that we can come up with a policy. Now, operation and maintenance tends to get covered with the quarterly fees. And we have an $84 quarterly fee that just was raised a few years back, I believe a few years back. Yeah. But part of that is taking care of the system that we have. So, and part of that would be potentially expanding some of those, or proportionally expanding some of those transmission lines. So anyway, I'd like us to be able to bring, have this done, have some proposals brought back to this board so we can consider it and actually play out and do what we said we were going to do when we ran for office, development is appropriate along the US 23 corridor. It's not necessarily out in the ag areas. So we want to protect our water, and we want to do what we said we were going to do. So.
I'm not arguing that point, I'm arguing the fact that we're just handing this guy a bid. That's what I don't like. I'd like to have us put stuff out for bid.
And the last time we didn't have Mr. Rubel involved with an expansion of the sewer system, those records were lost from the prior engineer. It cost us a lot of money and a lot of attorney fees to re-engineer what had happened.
He costs us a lot of money,
No,
too.
listen. It cost us a lot of money to try to figure out what happened there with that 7-mile SAD, so that we could make sure that we were in the right.
What happened there was we paid the nearly $1 million. Me, I was one of them, out of about less than 20.
Yeah,
We paid $1 million for it, and it come out of our pocket. The township never paid 1 penny.
And the calculation was very poor on that SAD too. So anyway, the motion is on the table, and it has been seconded, and I would like a roll call vote at this time.
I just had a comment. I'm
Ms. Chick.
sorry.
All right, I'll give you
I
another.
just wanted to say, Mr. Rubel's been with the township for many, many years. He has more familiarity with this township than most people do, and bringing someone new in to do the work is going to take more time and will cost more money, and they just don't have the knowledge to do it as expediently or as well as Mr. Rubel does.
I don't agree.
Okay, Ms. Manley. Do you have some, you want to call the roll?
I'd like to, is it possible that we could get a copy of this 2014 study and maybe make this motion and make this vote at the next meeting to approve this study after we think on it?
No, I'd like to vote on the motion. Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Chockley.
Yes.
Bellinger.
No.
Docket.
No.
Zelenak.
No?
Chick.
Yes?
Manley, no. Otto.
Yes.
Okay, that fails. So we will get a hold of the 2014 study and vote at the next meeting then on getting the flow, getting the rate study done.
Thank you.
Okay, it's available, so we'll get that to you. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is yes, I would like to make a motion to purchase the grit conveyor for the wastewater treatment plant for $50,467.
I'll support.
What happened to number 4?
We're on number 2.
We're on number 2.
We're on number 2.
Yeah. So, motion by Chalkley and support by Bellinger.
Comes out of the wastewater.
Do we have any discussion on this item? Would you like to introduce this at all, Mr. Willis?
Yeah, we've had this piece of equipment for approximately 20 years, and it sits in a building where the flow comes in, and it's a very corrosive atmosphere. And over the years, this has rotted. It's rusted real bad. We've welded it 2 or 3 times and put plates on it and stuff, and it's getting to where there's nothing left to weld on it. The new one is going to be stainless steel, so it won't have those issues. This has been in the works for 2 or 3 years. We've talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
We got a price last year of $62. We upgraded it this winter at $65 over the years. And I called last week just to get an upgrade and time and everything, how long it would take. And she asked me, she said, well, what's in your budget? So I figured 65 was going to be the price we'd gotten before. And I told her 62. That was a last year price. And jokingly, I said, if we can get it for 50, we'll order it this week. She said, well, let me talk to the sales manager. So next morning, I come into work, and there's an email from her saying that I could get it for $50,000 if I ordered it by Friday evening. So there was no way I could do that. So I asked if I could extend it past the board meeting today. And so they've given me till tomorrow afternoon to order it.
Okay, so any more discussion on this item, Ms. Bellinger?
I had asked, because I had some questions for Mr. Willis as well. I asked why the price dropped, and was there a warranty, or is there anything different, or should we offer less for it, or whatnot? And he had told me this story, and he also said there is no warranty difference. They have to actually make this piece of equipment after we order it.
Yeah, it's kind of a one-off piece of equipment. It sits in a system with two other pieces of equipment that they're all made by the same manufacturer. So it's like, it'd be like replacing a transmission on a Ford car with a Chevy. If you went to another manufacturer, you would have all kinds of problems hooking up to what you have. So we're kind of stuck with this piece of equipment as far as buying and replacing it.
Okay. Mr. Dockett.
I'm reading here where it says this unit has been on the replacement list for 3 years. Could you tell me how much the price was 3 years ago? Why didn't we buy it 3 years ago?
Well, the first price I got was 62. I think originally it was 58.
This is 3 years ago, sir?
I just have the price from last year.
Okay, well, but what I'm reading here, this unit has been on the replacement for 3 years.
It's been
I just wondered what it was, how much money it was. Maybe we should have got it 3 years ago. Thank you.
Well, that's why I want to get it done this year yet, before we do
Well,
that.
it's kind of a hurry-up deal, though.
Yeah.
My other question was, is this the final fee, or what is other additional costs going to be for this?
There's going to be a cost to installation. We don't know that yet.
Okay.
And did you mention,
You got
Mr.
a guess on insulation? You got a guess?
Yeah.
Between 15 and 20,000 is what I've gotten.
Oh, I think we should have that in here. I think that's important. I don't like to see something that says 50,000, then find out it's 70.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Ms. Zalman.
So was this in your budget again? I can't recall.
Yeah, this is
It
in
is.
our budget. It
The,
was on the capital cost list that we talked about when we did the budget.
Okay, and then did I understand right that it's going to cost maybe 20,000 to install it?
Possibly,
And was that in the budget as well?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Right, we have $110,000 in the capital outlay budget for the wastewater treatment plant. And this project was actually in for $71,000, over $71,000. So this is a significant, less. Of course, there's the installation.
Right, so it's about the
Yeah,
price.
it's about there, yeah.
Good estimate.
So, anyway. All right, any more questions over here? Okay, roll call vote then, please.
Chick,
Yes.
Manley, yes. Chockley,
Yes?
Dockett,
No.
Otto,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
Zelenak.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, that passes. The next item, would you like to handle this one, Ms. Manley, since it's yours?
Basically, this year, the state of Michigan is providing new voting equipment to the whole state of Michigan. There was a few different vendors that were available, and Washtenaw County ended up going with, I think it's Hart InterCivic. And basically what's on the agenda for tonight is to give me the okay to sign for the grant agreement that the state's going to be providing the equipment for us. And there's no cost to the township until 5 years, and it's a 5-year payment plan starting in 2000.
I can't hear you.
Okay. We don't have to start paying for anything until 2021, and that's just for maintenance. And there's a memo in there saying what the cost would be at that point. And the new equipment will be in effect for the November election. And they'll be starting to arrive probably mid-August to be in preparation for November. Ton?
So where does the money coming from that's paying for this equipment?
It's a state-funded grant. Where the grant money comes from,
It's the Help America Vote Act.
So it's federal money
Federal.
and state money, which is taxpayer money, so this definitely isn't free. We've already paid for these. Has the attorney looked over this contract? I would like maybe to get a legal look at this.
They were sent.
There's one thing, if we're not purchasing this, because we're not paying any money, why is it a purchase agreement on the front page here, if there's no charge?
Because we're paying for the
And-
maintenance.
Right. There's no upfront cost. We don't have to start paying anything until, I think it's 2021.
So our tax money doesn't cover the maintenance for the full 10 years, huh?
Right.
Yeah, so basically, this is a maintenance agreement.
Right.
But it should be pointed out that this certainly isn't free. This is tax money, which is very inflated by the time it comes back to any municipality.
Right.
Okay,
Thank
so-
you.
Okay, we should actually make a motion.
We have a motion on the floor, shouldn't we have a motion?
Yeah, we should have a motion here.
About-
I could make it unless you wanted to make the motion. I've got a motion to approve Resolution 17571 to authorize Clerk Kathleen Manley to submit the Help America Vote Act grant application and agreement as grant manager. She will be the grant manager. And authorize Supervisor Chalkley and Clerk Manley to sign the grant application and agreement, including the Schedule B license agreement for the Verity software on behalf of Northfield Township. That's the whole
I'll
thing.
support the motion,
Okay,
and then we can have
so-
discussion.
Yes. Ms. Otto.
So on page 3 of the agreement, it talks, the grant is not provided for the purchase of additional backup voting systems. The grantee will be responsible for developing and implementing backup strategies to ensure continued operation on election day. Do we have any failover or backup?
We did not order any backups.
I mean, do we have, in corporations that call it business continuity plan, so do we have any backup in case something goes wrong with the equipment and we can't, do we have something that we can use in the interim? I mean, is it manual, is it?
The county will be having extra machines that we can access should one of ours go down.
Plus, we have like an extra one that we use for like the absentee voters. If it came down to it, we could always pull that machine also.
Yep. Ms. Chick.
Is this a requirement to get this purchase agreement in order to get the
Yes.
voting equipment? So
Yes.
if you don't approve the agreement, then you don't get the equipment?
Right, there's not a whole lot of choice.
Right. We actually don't have any choice. This has to be turned
it's-
in, like tomorrow
Yeah.
or something?
That's like corruption.
Okay. Mr. Dockett.
At the top, the first paragraph, first sentence, new equipment licensing agreement and purchase agreement. That's what it says. So why does it say the new equipment licensing agreement and purchase agreement if it's not a purchase?
Well, we are purchasing it. It's just getting purchased with grant money, not,
Okay.
Well, that's what it says, purchase. I mean, why would it say that if it's not?
Okay.
And on the next line, it says the same thing. Schedule B licensing agreement between this Hart Civic OPIT and then it says for 10 years from the date of purchase, but it says purchase.
Okay.
So,
I guess it's however you want to interpret the word purchase.
wow,
I mean, we are purchasing them.
Okay.
it says purchase.
Okay. Ms. Zelnok?
Yeah, just my understanding is Washtenaw County made this decision.
Right.
And
Right.
we're a part of Washtenaw County.
Right, the
And-
state chose.
And Washtenaw County selected this out of, I did think, different options of equipment, and we're part of them, and I don't know, I actually don't know if we have a choice, personally.
I wasn't quite finished, and it says that we have to pay it the last, after 4 years. Well, it'll be old by then, and then we're gonna have to pay for the maintenance. That's what it says.
Yep.
Right.
One more, I
You're
don't know.
right. Okay, Ms.
So I
Otto.
just wanted to clarify on page 4, number 12, it does state that it's statutory or regulatory requirements that as a grantee of getting the voting machines, we do have to sign this contract. I mean, it's a condition for grant approval, basically. That's all it says.
Right. Okay. Call the roll.
Bellinger,
No.
Zelenak,
Yes.
Chick. Yes. Manley, yes. Chockley.
Yes.
Docket.
No.
Otto.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is the natural gas supplier. I'd like to make a motion to authorize Supervisor Chalkley to end the natural gas contract with Constellation New Energy and return to Consumers Energy as soon as possible.
Support.
Yeah.
Okay. Motion by Chalkley, support by
discussion.
Docket. Okay, any discussion? Okay, call the roll. I don't see any hands.
Yes.
Yes.
I didn't hear
Yes.
you, but I.
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
Zelenak.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That passes. Wow.
Congratulations to Madam Supervisor.
Thank you. Okay, next item. And this is Ms. Zelnok's item. Would you like to?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to update our resolution of the Northfield Township Board of Trustees establishing a policy of township investment and depository designation. As I said, so I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, Zelnok, and I'll support that.
Okay. As mentioned in the memo, I'd like to add the Ann Arbor State Bank as well as Old National Bank for CD and CDAR purposes, and I'd like to, and what it does is remove the First Bank of Omaha, because the library wanted that, and they're no longer going to go that way. They're going to basically follow our policies or what we're investing in. And this is CDs and CDAR, so it will be FDIC insured.
Okay, any more comment on that?
Roll call vote.
Ms. Bellinger?
What bank are we currently using for just a regular business?
First National Bank.
First National. Is there any reason that we would not maybe do some CD investment with them, or?
Two reasons. One is their interest rates weren't as competitive as much as these other two. I called around 10 banks. I did call First National Bank again, and I have no response yet from them on that. And the other is diversification. It'll diversify our funds somewhat.
Has First National treated us fairly well? Are they pretty good to be loyal to the best of our ability, do you think?
Pardon me?
Do you feel that First National is treat us pretty well and that we maybe could have a little more loyalty to them possibly? If they help us out with some rates and stuff?
Right now, you know, I've called 10 different banks. They were one of the banks. I told them what I was doing. They didn't really up it. I do think it's good to diversify as well, so.
Can somebody unplug that thing?
So.
Okay, thank you,
Oh.
Lenore.
That's, you know,
Push-
where I
yeah,
am on
push
that
the button.
Thank you.
position. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Okay, call the roll, please, Clerk Manley.
Chick.
Yes.
Manley, yes. Otto.
Yes.
Bellinger.
Yes.
Zelenak.
Yes.
Otto. Oh, sorry. Docket.
No.
Chockley.
Yes. Okay, that passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item is the independent contractor contracts, and I will allow Ms. Otto, who has submitted this, to lead this portion.
Yeah, so this was based on, as we spoke earlier, based on discussions that we had in the Personnel Committee meeting in regards to independent contractors. As we looked into it further, we realized that we did have people that were considered independent contractors that we did not have contracts with. So what we did is we started looking into the Michigan laws and the IRS guidelines in regards to what constitutes an independent contractor. We did have one of our legal attorney review, we had our legal attorney review Jim Nelson's, and also there is a test that you have to take, and not a test, but questions that you have to take to see if they match, if they comply with an independent contractor, and that's according to the IRS, not according to the state of Michigan or according to our township. So it's where and when and where to do the work, what tools and equipment are used, where to purchase supplies and services, what work must be performed by specific individuals. And really, basically, it's, you know, if the township tells the person what they need to do, controls the situation, then they're not an independent contractor. If they use township equipment, if they're dictated as to the times of when and where they can do their work, these are all come under the criteria of being an independent contractor. Where when we looked at Lisa's position, she is an independent contractor. So I do want to make a statement that this was nothing in line with trying to remove anybody or change anybody. It's more to get us in line with what we're supposed to be doing as a township employer. That's all this was. So basically, we could look at this, and we did have a template personnel policy and procedures as far as what an independent contractor is. This is a draft. And what I wanted to do was to make the motion to accept the personnel policy and procedure on independent contractor number 1. And then what the next step would be to look at is for the board to decide, is each of these people independent contractors? Are they employees? And then decide, okay, if they're independent contractors, then we need to make the next step of getting a contract written between the individuals and the township. And if they are an employee, then we need to make the steps to making them an employee.
Okay. So
That is all this is.
Okay. So are you making a motion to accept this personnel policy and procedures?
So
or is
what
this
I would like to do is to make the motion to accept the personnel policy and procedure as drafted. And Brad did review this.
Did you have any further conversation with Ms. Otto about any of this?
I did. There was one item you saw probably in my email that there was one paragraph I was concerned about. I had an opportunity to do a little bit further research on that, and I think that it's appropriate as drafted.
Okay. Okay, so you made the motion. I guess I'll second the motion so I can talk to this one item here. Number 7, where it talks about the township will not obtain or be responsible for obtaining workers' compensation benefits or insurance on behalf of the independent contractor. I've spoken to our liability people, and they actually do cover
Where are we at here?
our independent contractors, or at least they did. And so I'm wondering about this in relation to our building inspectors that go out. I don't know if they're independent. They seem to be independent contractors, but I don't know if we have any contracts with any of them. So I do appreciate the fact that we're going to look at all of these positions, because we've got like multiple
Right.
that go out, and they're not necessarily associated with Pittsfield Township. So we have a lot of things, a lot of ducks to get in a row, I think, around here, and that's one of them. But so I'm just wondering about that one, number 7, if we cover, I guess I can find out from our liability insurance.
Normally
that
for
number
independent
7.
contractors, workers' comp is not covered because it's for an employee of the township.
Do we require then $1 million of coverage, you know, for,
Well, that's what the township would have to determine. Do we require them to have their own insurance? I know in some situations, so say like when we had the farmer do the farming on the one land over by the second firehouse, we did ask for insurance coverage on that. So that is a protection of the, in the event that anything happens to him on the property, he is covered by his own insurance.
Yeah, and it's very inexpensive.
Yeah.
Okay. I know our code enforcement officer didn't have the, that coverage, and so that was the reason for checking with our liability insurance, and then he was covered. I mean, he had been, that position had been covered prior, and I think that Mr. Fink had set that up with them. So it was kind of interesting.
It could, you could check to see if it's actually a part of the policy or it was added on to the policy.
Okay.
I mean, there's different things. You can add different things onto the policy, and all it does is increase your premiums.
Right. My understanding is it did not.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so Ms. Otto had made the motion, and I seconded it. Do we have other comments? Mr. Dockett?
Oh, yes, this is from Jackie, I believe. There is no price-size dollar limit that must be met in order to have a significant investment. I don't expect this is going to go anywhere, but both of these people worked for this township for years and years and years. I would like to ask them what they would like. If they don't need an investment, if they want to go through all the getting the insurance and doing all the stuff they have to do, and they want to be an independent contractor, I could go along with that. I think it's some politics involved here, so that's my thought. I'd like to know what they would like. I don't want to have either one of them upset with us. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I don't think that it's up to them or it's up to the township. It's really up to the IRS to determine
Well,
what they are.
If you say they don't, there's no precise dollar, how come one is one way and one's the other, according to what I've read?
Well, it has to be because of the equipment, because, so example, Jim Nelson, the equipment is ours. He has a set time of which he has to do his job. Unlike Lisa brings her equipment here. She doesn't necessarily have to sit here to do her job. She can do her job anywhere and still have the same results. That's the difference. And I'm not the one that wrote them. This is the IRS guidelines, and we did have our labor attorney look at it, and she did say that, yes, Mr. Nelson would be considered an employee.
Well, I think it's politics, and I don't like it. It doesn't pass the smell test for me.
So the thing is that if the board decides that each one of them are an independent contractor, all I'm requesting is that we have contracts for both of them. That's all I'm asking.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it seems kind of quasi, like, it seems like these are on a balance, like, what are some of these positions? Like, it could go either way. So it's a little confusing in that regards. I mean.
Well, that's why you have to have somebody look at it. I'm not the one to determine it. That's why we asked the attorney to look at it.
According to the memos,
Okay.
you and Janet made your decision.
Ms. Zelnok?
I don't know if Ms. Chick was first or, but.
I don't know either.
Yeah, so what do we presently have for?
All I'm asking for is the policy to be approved.
And what do we currently have for the policy?
We don't have one.
We don't have an independent contractor
No.
policy.
That's a good place to start.
And so this is to establish a policy.
This is to establish a policy. And really, that's all this is.
Ms. Chick?
So I'm just a little confused because we're establishing a policy that we're going to review each employee, but we've already got a decision from an attorney on one, and so where are we with this? I mean, if we're still going to be reviewing whether or not someone's then we don't need to go to the next item. So if we got a determination from Stacy, so we don't get to decide. I'm confused. Where are we?
Ms. Manley, go ahead.
Check.
You can hear us over the speaker. Anyway,
Mr. Dockett's headphones are making a hissing sound. Oh, it's come up there too? Oh, okay.
I agree we should have the policy, and we need to review everybody and have a list of, say, who we do need to review. And I don't,
Somebody kicked something?
Yeah, we should have everybody review.
This mic's working.
She just did one. No.
Is your mic working?
Forever.
My mic is on.
It's a lot cheaper.
Is your mic work?
I'll connect something.
His is working. Yeah, his headphones are hissing. You guys want to check out each mic?
Check mine. Yep.
One.
yep, check.
Yes.
Check.
Check.
Well, the mics are working.
Check.
Wouldn't be that one, would it? This one right here? No, that's a cord. He already checked it, yes. Can't operate with that.
What if you turn,
Okay.
You fixed it, Willow.
No, it's still.
we turn it on and turn it off?
Yeah, just it's coming up over hers too. It's coming up over here too, the speaker as well.
Did you hear?
It's better. I think you fixed it, Lisa.
No, I still hear it.
Oh.
I think this is definitely.
Okay. Maybe.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Turn the mic on.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, whatever works.
Oh, it started up
I can
again.
still hear the hissing, but it's not as bad.
It's coming back now.
Sounds like it's coming from there.
Did you turn that off?
Marlene, turn it off.
Turn it on.
There.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, yes, it is. Is it better, right? It's
Better,
better.
Mr. Dockett, is it?
Yes, it's fine.
Okay. Do it like that. It's still there, but
No, that's still there.
It's still there.
she did.
You gotta talk in the mic.
All you hear is hissing?
All you hear is hissing? Do you hear anything, Mr. Dockett? Do you hear anything?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sort of. I can hear the hissing. Yeah, it's like it just happened.
It could be a bad battery in that microphone. I guess that could do that. It finally gets weak enough. Well, I turned it on and it got better.
Turn it on.
It doesn't make any sense.
Now if you turn it on. And how about the mic? Is the mic on or off? Yeah, 10 o'clock. Our new sound system. Can we, let's maybe, got a motion, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess if I can finish my thought. Stacy did review what we sent in regards to Jim, but I think with information we received today, and maybe having a conversation with Jim, we need to get that
I think it needs to be reviewed again.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree.
So, and I do feel that if he is considered an employee and he has paid for things, that yes, he needs to be reimbursed, and I don't know why the township didn't reimburse him.
Right.
So.
Right.
Okay.
So, anyway.
Everything's fine now.
So did you want to withdraw your motion and table this?
No, I
No.
still think that this is just a personnel policy. This has no
Okay.
determination over Jim or Lisa or anybody else. All it is accepting this as a personnel policy.
Okay. So we have a motion by,
And
Otto.
everything that's in here, just so everybody understands, is outlined according to the IRS. There's nothing, no language that has been incorporated. It's specifically outlined.
I support.
okay.
Yeah, I think we have a motion. So our attorneys have reviewed it, both Stacy and Brad.
Brad has, Stacy hasn't, because I don't want to have any more charges. She's hourly, he's retainer.
Is this your area of expertise, Mr. Maines?
We
Or is
ha-
it now?
We have done work regarding independent contractors in the past. We drafted the form independent contractor contract. We've done work. Independent contractors are a little bit on the line.
Okay,
So we've done it in the past.
thank you.
Okay. So, motion by Otto.
You
and-
second.
And I seconded
support.
it. Okay. We can have a roll call vote.
Can we have it read back to us?
Okay.
The motion is to accept the independent contractor personnel policy as written.
Okay. Roll
We're
call
making no
vote.
decisions.
Not on anybody personally.
Okay,
No.
all right.
No, it's not on anybody
Okay,
personally,
okay.
it's just a policy.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Okay, yep.
Zelenak,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
Otto,
Yes.
Docket,
Yes.
Chockley,
Yes.
Manley, yes. Chick.
Yes?
Okay, that passes. Thank you. The next item is the videographer compensation. Ms. Chick.
And the only reason this is on the agenda is because of the determination that Ms. Belisle made that Mr. Nelson was not an independent contractor, that he was in fact an employee, and the proposal was to, as an employee, to pay that person hourly. And it is entirely possible it could be more lucrative for him if he actually charges us hourly as opposed to per meeting. Currently, he makes $85 a meeting, or the videographer does, not whoever it is, makes $85 per meeting, whether the meeting is half an hour or 3.5 hours. So that's why it would have been, I think, more consistent to have a rate, a flat rate per hour, and then get paid that way.
Are you making a motion, Ms. Chick?
No, I guess because we just did the policy and we're talking about reviewing everybody again,
Okay.
this is
So are we tabling?
moot. Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so,
Well, I'd like to say something about this. We get paid the same way if we're here for
That would be awesome.
an hour or
okay.
We'd be a lot more,
Maybe.
I can't hear you.
I'm motion for hourly rate for the trustees.
Yep.
10 hours at home and 3
I don't know, I think that it used to be, what, $200 or $100 a meeting?
There you go.
Well, no, we got
25 a meeting, there you go.
125.
Oh, 125 a meeting.
Okay.
That's what it was.
Okay, so Ms. Otto is making a motion to table this item?
Not me.
No.
No, Ms. Chick. is
Yes.
Okay, motion to table?
Yes.
Okay, and I'll second that. Okay, any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, tabled, thank you. All right, the next item is a second call to the public. Would anyone like to speak at this time? Welcome.
You have to turn that on,
Now
man.
you gotta turn it on.
Yeah.
Don't make a mistake. No, I'm just teasing.
Okay. Catherine Johnson, 7777
Talk
Sutton.
into it. Gotta talk into it, too.
Okay. This is an unusual mic. First off, thank you for hearing the comments, and thank you for considering the additional input. I truly believe the editing capability that Jim does to take things like the presentation you just saw today that would not be readable or seeable by anyone seeing this video, and inserting those slides in is extremely valuable. That information, if you require it as an employee to be done on site, you do need to step up to the type of a computer and equipment and software and need to make sure it's maintained. You know, that to me does not make good sense for this township. Allowing that work to be done off-site and on his equipment, I think, is a very critical determination. In my opinion, that places the burden on him to be trained, or any other person who's an independent employee here. This is a fast-moving technology. You do not want to become experts in this technology. Most major companies do not have employees that are their own videographer. They hire this out. It's a skill. So that's my statement there. Second, technical education. Many people believe that it is very hard to get access to your video streams. And first of all, I'll acknowledge to the lawyer in the room, it's my belief that this is public information and is posted on a public website. So I wanted to test the theory. It took me less than 3 minutes this morning to download a file from your site. All I had to do was go to my browser. I had to enable a certain widget on that browser. I had to click on the video that was on live stream, and I had your planning file. It was down in an MP4 format. It was completely editable. Now, I cannot repost it back to live stream. That means it's technically your document. But I can really do anything at that point. I can turn all of your faces purple if I wanted to and repost it on YouTube. You know, I'm not being a little sarcastic here, but it is relatively easy to do. It is the nature of the technology in the business. So the assumption that people who handle your video files have some secret sauce and they're the only ones that can touch this. I am not a video expert, but I was able to do this in less than 3 minutes. And the only reason I picked the planning meeting is I didn't want to download a 3-hour meeting because I didn't know how fast it would be. But that file was there, it was available. So it's easy to take it and repost it. So as long as it's out and considered a public document, you know, this is what will happen. You know, and so that's just whether you like it or not, it is part of the nature of the technology. I think sharing and being accurate and maintaining your own integrity of your files on live stream and not worrying about what happens to these videos when they get launched off into whatever world is probably the best course of action you'd have. But I'd advise your legal staff to take a look and decide how they might feel about it and give you a recommendation and that otherwise. But, you know, that's it. It's much easy. I'm not going to do any editing and I'm not going to post it on Facebook, but I do have it, and I will acknowledge that I have it, and it did not come in any secret sauce from Jim. This was me, my own, while he was still sleeping this morning.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come up?
David Gordon, 5558 Hellner. I'm sorry the meeting didn't start till 8 o'clock because now it's 10, and I'd like to go to the establishments here in the township, but they stopped serving food at 10, so there you go. But just a couple of things. In terms of the new tax, the new voting machines, I think the residents would be interested if their experience in the voting booth is going to be different. You know, what they're going to have to do to go through the new software. I have concerns about electronic voting simply because I think it's a whole lot easier to hack an electronic machine than it is to do it with a paper ballot. I think a paper ballot will always be more secure. No matter what the encryption is, it seems like the hackers managed to get past it. I'm glad there was a discussion about the computers, about the sewers. It seems like there's somewhere in the range of $6 million in expenses that we're looking at. I don't know how much of a tap-in fee you'd have to charge to how many people before you would get that money back. But I think it'd be very interesting when I listen to Mr. Tetra Tech talk up here. Your equipment is 70 years old, or some of it is that old. It's been upgraded. The pipes eventually die. Are you putting enough money away to pay to replace this equipment when it fails? Because these pipes are not going to last forever. That's a question that I think the board needs to find out, you know, and that's what planning for capital improvements is all about. It's maintenance too, not just expansion. There's members of this board that seem to have a horrible reaction to the word taxes and think that they're the worst thing in the world. But without any taxes, we wouldn't have a country. I mean, maybe nobody likes paying taxes, but I always considered it a privilege because it's kind of like the bill that you have to pay to be an American, because we're all in this together, and our taxes support our military, they support our roads, our schools. You can't have a country without taxes, and I believe the founders of this country figured that out between 1775 and 1777. They said, we can't run the country without taxes. So they aren't by themselves a bad thing. That's all I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one, board member comments. Ms. Manley?
Quick.
Yes.
Mr. Gordon, I did get an email from the county today, and they're not electronic ballots, and it just says that heart ballots are rectangular boxes that appear to the left of the selection as opposed to ovals on the right. So there's still going to be paper ballots, just they're going to look a little different. So, that's it.
Okay. Ms. Chick?
If they're the same ones that the Detroit got, they also, if you make a mistake on your ballot, it will tell you instantly that you've made a mistake and you can correct it. If it's the same system, I imagine it would be. They just bought new ones too, or got new ones. Yeah, when they slide it in, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other comments? Ms. Bellinger?
Yeah, I'd like to mention again that we can use some volunteers for cleanup projects around the park and around the community. On the website, township website, under, I think, the word community, the very bottom tab is volunteer, and it brings up a window and you can type in your email and your phone number. I want to mention the talk, just a quick mention of 100 to 150 apartments on Whitmore Lake Road. I want to stress that I want to see land ownership. I want to see housing, condos, and family residences, property ownership, not rentals. We have an adequate rental property here in Northfield. I want people with skin in the game. So I'd like to see that as opposed to apartments anywhere that development does occur. And grants are a most hideous thing. It's the confiscation of tax money utilized to expand and grow the cancer of government and the tentacles of its intrusion into your personal and private and community, into your life. So taxes are definitely needed for borders and military and a country. But grants are something altogether different. They're a form of coercion and manipulation. Please shop local, and I want to wish everybody just a wonderful wonderful summer, remainder of summer and so forth. Thank you for coming out. And thank you, Jim, for the work you do.
Any other comments from Mr. Dockett?
Fire millage.
Yes?
Vote on August 8th.
Correct.
Excuse me,
Correct?
2 mills, new millage. The township gave Mr. Wagner $275,000 out of the general fund in the last few months, recently, let's say, and it was all property tax money. And the fire department will never have enough money to suit them. So they always want more money. So I'm going to encourage everybody to get out to vote. They're having it in the summer when everybody's on vacation, and that's why it's now, because they only have a very few people who's going to vote. They couldn't stand to have it during the presidential election. Thank you very much.
Okay. Ms. Zelnok?
A couple items. One is, as we mentioned, I'd like to see they have the process of how the ordinance is processed, so people understand it, that you may get ticketed once and then we try to work with the people. I know Mike tries to work with them, but I think it would be good to have it. And the other thing is, I think we need to have a process on building permits. I mean, we have it. I think it needs to be shared, because we have heard a lot of complaints about what's the process. Why is it? We do have a process.
Process on what?
On building permits. So there's been talk about it. I know we have it. I think that should be shared and understood. And maybe there's areas that need to be improved so that we can move things along appropriately.
Is it zoning compliance or is it building permits, like getting inspections? Or it's zoning compliance, I think
Yeah.
that's what you mean.
Well, I think a little bit of both, actually. I think zoning compliance and building permits, because people they're saying they're trying to get into buildings and not being permitted.
That's zoning
Okay,
compliance.
then let's
Right.
do that.
Yep.
They'll
Yep.
start there.
Yep.
Thank you for the correction.
Yep.
And then again, there is go out and vote. I'm always exercise your right to vote, August 8th.
Okay.
And the other thing is, when do we think the Parks and Rec will be coming before us for their plan?
I'll have to get in touch with Sam and find out, but relatively, well, maybe next month.
Land preservation, we're still working on
They wanna
a
do
presentation, just to
September.
let you know.
Mhm.
And I'm supposed to get with someone for PEX at the end of the month.
Okay, okay. I want to mention that the Northfield Preserve out on 7 Mile Road is having an opportunity for volunteerism tomorrow between 10 and 3. They are cleaning up all of the garbage that's out there, and they have a dumpster. And so if you'd like to volunteer between 10 and 3 tomorrow, you can show up at the Northfield Preserve, and on our, an email went out about it. You can call the office if you'd like to call the woman who's in charge of that and get out there to help. They, bring gloves and good shoes. August 8th, yes, 2 mills are on the ballot for our fire and medical rescue millage. That millage expired. So that's a confusion to some people. That did expire with our December levy. So there is no funding for fire and medical rescue after they run through the rest of their budget this year. So that is, that's important, and if anyone, absolutely everyone should go out and vote on that one. And as far as general fund money supporting the fire department, $275,000 did go to the fire department so that they would be able to purchase a fire truck. That's not all tax of that .79 mils that we collect here as a township. That did not all come from there because we don't even collect that much. But we do get revenue sharing from the state, so a good portion of that general fund money that we use is from the state. So, and then, yes, the zoning compliance is an issue, but we'll be working on that, so we'll get a presentation. Okay. Anybody else down there? Nope.
I just
Janet?
have a request. In the instance that someone inquires into the township about possibly putting in some kind of development or you spoke about the 150, the multi-residential units. Could the board be advised somehow, because I heard this coming from the public, and I think, and we look stupid when we don't know about it, but everybody else does, so.
Right. Well, I did mention it at the DDA meeting last night. There's nothing solid, you know, a lot of people come in and they go, well, where is this zoned properly? And that was the question that was asked of me, where is it zoned for that? And so then they're just, you know, there's no purchases, nothing, they're just inquiring. And we are getting a lot of inquiries, because, you know, yeah, and so I'm happy to share with that. If you wanted, I could write up something, you know, just to tell you, but, you know, what's going on out there, what I'm hearing on the street or in the office or whatever, but,
Well, yeah, I think that's part of what I was hearing
Yeah.
this morning from 22 people, is that they think there's nothing going on, and there's things going on, but they're not hearing about them, so it would be good for that to be public, yeah.
right, well.
Even if they're not serious, but if people are inquiring, at least it shows there's interest.
There's a lot of interest, you know, and wait till we get our downtown plan. That's gonna be exciting, so, anyway, okay.
Here is the ballot. This is the copy of the ballot. It says that it is going to be increased by 2 mills. $2
Yep.
for every $2,000. New,
Yep.
it says, new.
Yep, it's currently 0, so it'll be increased by 2.
New.
Okay, motion to adjourn? Okay, motion by Chalkley, support by Chick. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? No. Thank you.
Go look at those signs on your way out.